Look at this editing timeline. Political exclusion happens right here, as the editor deletes a subject's visual representation and flattens their voice into silence. Communication studies traditionally asks who gets to speak in a democracy, yet it often lacks the mechanical precision to analyze how power operates at this granular, frame-by-frame level. Traditional semiotics maps these mechanical formats, the frames, the cuts, the devices, but frequently ignores the structural realities of political power and systemic exclusion. This gap requires a new theoretical bridge, semiotic citizenship. This framework merges political stakes with semiotic precision. Under this framework, domination is the active political restriction of a subject's capacity to participate in the production and translation of signs, rather than the mere imposition of a fixed meaning. The ultimate measure of political power is the ability to dictate what is even possible to interpret within a society's media landscape. To operationalize this, we have to discard the traditional Saussurian model of linguistics, where a signifier is tied to a fixed, closed meaning. Instead, we turn to the logic of Charles Sanders Peirce. Peirce's model shifts the focus toward the representamen, a system where semiosis is constitutively open. This diagram illustrates the Peircean triad: representamen, object, and interpretant. Because the pathways between these nodes are fluid and open, this model can include visual, bodily, and territorial realities, escaping the limits of purely linguistic models. Establishing semiotic citizenship means confronting epistemological truth regimes, the institutional devices of power and knowledge that actively attempt to close off this open semiosis. Analyzing how these regimes target subalternized subjects, specifically sexual and gender dissidents, requires an intersectional and decolonial lens. Semiotic citizenship requires securing a marginalized subject's right to generate new, unfixed meanings within a colonized space, rather than merely recognizing their presence. This brings us to a strict theoretical clash. Peirce's model demands infinite semiotic opening, where a sign always generates another sign. Conversely, Ernesto Laclau's political theory dictates that order requires hegemonic closure, a necessary fixing of meaning. Attempting to resolve this contradiction by isolating Peirce to micro-details and Laclau to macro-politics fails. It assumes that individual signs exist outside of political articulation, which they do not. The solution is a processual, simultaneous tension. Here, the high-angle shot acts as hegemonic closure, attempting to fix the subject as a victim. But simultaneously, the subject's direct gaze breaks that framing, generating unpredicted interpretants and reopening the semiosis. Think of hegemony as a dam attempting to restrict the flow of meaning. But the dam itself is constructed entirely out of signs, the water. You cannot separate the fluid from the container trying to hold it. Analyzing political media means tracking this tension in real time, observing where the format tries to trap the subject and exactly where the subject breaks the format. To categorize this closure, we must avoid linear lists that confuse the ontological existence of a sign with the political intent to suppress it. The y-axis tracks institutional access, the x-axis interpretative friction. Top left is denied semiosis, high access, closed friction. Bottom right is subalternized semiosis, open friction, minimal access. We can trace a filmmaker's trajectory from the underground mainstream, gaining funding but sacrificing narrative freedom. The remaining quadrants cover foreclosed and abyssal semiosis. The abyssal zone is where meaning is pushed entirely out of epistemological existence. Sociologist Boaventura de Sousa Santos describes this boundary as the abyssal line, separating existing subjects from those deemed non-existent. This leads to the fallacy of asemia. This is the operation where a colonial regime labels a marginalized group's expression as noise or nonsense to justify their expulsion. Declaring something non-semiotic is never an objective observation. It is an active political refusal to translate the other. There is a methodological trap here. You cannot jump directly from reading post-structuralist philosophy to analyzing a jump cut in a video file. Editors do not cut footage based on political philosophy. They make decisions based on the established conventions of their specific genre, like the documentary format. To bridge this gap, we use a 3-level translation protocol. Level 1 is abstract theory, abyssal semiosis. Level 2 translates to a genre convention, Documentaries require archival B-roll. Finally, level 3 is the technical variable. Searching state archives for dissident productions yields an empty folder. The absence of a file on a government hard drive is the exact physical manifestation of the abyssal line within the editing timeline. By stepping down this ladder, philosophical interpretation is transformed into auditable, systemic evidence of exclusion. Pulling back from the micro-details of the timeline, we can view this entire system as a semiosphere structured by coloniality. We have resolved the tension of the sign, mapped the mechanisms of exclusion onto a two-dimensional matrix, and built a methodological ladder to measure it empirically. Hegemonic powers exercise semiotic citizenship fully. This framework simply maps the specific mechanisms used to deny that same capacity to others. This concept provides the missing normative horizon for communication studies. Political exclusion does not end with voting laws or economic budgets. It is executed, codified, and enforced, frame by frame, cut by cut, within the conventions of our mediatized world.